Today we are updating All Things Tools and having an in-depth discussion on how exactly the Salvage Operations perk really works. Right here in Saven's World. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Saven's World, the gaming channel for all things 7 Days to Die. Now, if you are ready to learn all things 7 Days to Die and take your 7 days gameplay to the next level, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss a single one of our tutorial videos. Today, we will be updating a video that I released a little earlier talking about the new tools that have been released in 7 Days to Die. We will also be taking an in-depth look at the Salvage Operations perk and trying to figure out exactly how that perk works. So let's go ahead and head on over to the testing site and let's get to it. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. So to start, let me explain exactly what we're going to be doing today. In a previous video, I had remarked that I did not think that the Salvage Operations bonus was working for the Impact Driver. Well, the Fun Pimps released an update B177, which is the update we are playing right now, and they addressed this issue. So now Salvage Operations is actually working for the Impact Driver. So you will be getting that bonus for every single item, no matter which one you use, wrench, ratchet, or Impact Driver. However, I did receive a whole bunch of questions on exactly how the Salvage Operations perk works, because a lot of people were noticing that they weren't getting much of a bonus even after putting points into the Salvage Operations perk. So today I am going to explain exactly how the Salvage Operations perk works. In order to do that, I have set up this fancy little contraption here. So let me explain exactly what we have going on. I have 6 boxes set up, level 0 through 5. These are going to be our level of Salvage Operations. Above that, I have a whole bunch of fuse boxes. Now, in the previous video, I used cars to scrap down to get the items out of, but I decided to change to the fuse box because the fuse box is much simpler than the car and should give us some better results and make it a little bit easier to explain. So before I can explain how the Salvage Operations perk works, I need to run a little bit of an experiment. So what I'm going to do is I am going to wrench these all down, or I'm going to salvage all of these fuse boxes. I'm going to do it 3 times with each tool. At level 0, that's with no perks. Then I'm going to bump it up to level 1 and do the same thing 3 times with each tool. And we'll throw those in the box. And then level 2, level 3, and so on and so forth, all the way to level 5. So in the end, we are going to have 3 fuse boxes worth of salvage materials for each tool in each of these boxes. That will give us a baseline and also give us all the information that we need in order to explain how Salvage Operations works. Because I will be honest, folks, it is a little complicated, a little bit math intensive. So bear with me and I will do my best to explain how this actually works. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get us the data that we need. So I'm going to start wrenching all this stuff down, getting all the supplies in the boxes. I am going to keep it on screen so you folks will actually see that I'm doing this. But I will not do it in real time. I'll fast forward it for you so you don't have to sit there and watch the entire thing, because that would be very long and very boring. So I will cut back in as soon as I get all of the materials done. But before I start, I do want to show you that my Salvage Operations is 0. I've got no extra perks opened up. So we are starting out at level 0, that I call it, and we will be moving up from there. So let me get started. Let me get everything wrenched, ratcheted, and Impact Driver down. Let me get these supplies in the box, and I will be back just as soon as that is done. See you folks in a second. And there you have it, folks. All of the experiments are complete. So let's take a look at our boxes. As you see, the top layer here, this is for wrenches. This is what we got with the wrench. This is what we got with the ratchet, the second tier here, and the third tier, this is what we got with the impact driver. It's the exact same in every single box, or the setup is exactly the same in every single box. And as we go down, this was level 1 salvage operations, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, as you guys saw as I was doing the experiment. Now, I did mess up a couple of times, which is why you saw me dropping stuff and pretty much starting that row over again. So, you know what? I'm human. That happens. But we have all the information we need in order to figure out exactly how salvage operations works. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at our level 0 box. Now, you'll notice that it doesn't matter what tool you use, you will still get relatively the same amount depending on your salvage operations perk. The level. You'll get the same amount of resources, so the tool itself doesn't matter. The only thing the tool will change is how fast you gather the resources. But look in here, the first thing that you will notice is we got 10 iron every single time. That is interesting. So if we go down here and look at our level 5, we still only got 10 iron every single time. That is interesting. And there's a reason for that. Every salvageable item in 7 Days to Die has 2 types of resources that you can get. I'm going to call these resources static resources and variable resources. A static resource will never change. Does not matter what level your salvage operations is at, you will always get the exact same amount of that resource. So, for instance, iron is a static resource in the fuse box. You will always get 10 iron, no matter what, if you use the wrench, the ratchet, or the impact driver, does not matter what your salvage operations level is. So, salvage operations has no effect on static resources. The other type of resource is what I like to call the variable resource. For the fuse box, the variable resource you can get is the electrical part. Now, what do I mean by variable resource? Well, that means that the amount that you get from each fuse box will not be the same. It varies. At level 0, sometimes you'll get as little as 2 electrical parts, and sometimes you'll get as many as 6, or anywhere in between. Another thing to keep in mind is 7 Days to Die uses a random number generator to determine the amount of variable resources that you will get from a salvageable item. And that number is determined the moment the item is spawned into the world. So, as soon as I slap down this fuse box, boom, just by placing it, 7 Days to Die has already determined the amount of variable resources I'm going to get out of this fuse box. So now we know about static resources, and we know that salvage operations has no effect on them. We also know about variable resources, and that salvage operations does affect the variable resource. How can we use this information to figure out exactly how salvage operations impacts those variable resources? Well, that is why I ran all of these tests, because we know that the amount of variable resources is already determined the moment an item is spawned into the world. That gives us our baseline. That's the number that you have to use mathematically to determine the maximum you can get with the salvage operations bonus. Now, before we are ready to calculate that bonus, there is one more piece of information that we need. Variable resources, is the number always a whole number, like 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? Or can it be somewhere in between? Could it be 2.5? Could it be 3.9? Could it be anything like that? Well, in order to answer that question, we have to actually come down here to our level 5 chest. And if we open this bad boy up, you'll notice, hey, wait a second, how did we get 7 resources when we're supposed to get double? If you double a whole number, it is always going to be even. So how can you get 7? Half of 7 is 3.5. That tells us that the amount of variable resources is not always a whole number. It can be anywhere between the very minimum, which for electrical boxes is 2, and the very maximum, which for electrical boxes is 6. It could be anywhere in that range. So now we know exactly how the game determines how many variable resources are in each salvageable item. We also know the range for this particular item, and we know that it can be anywhere in that range, does not have to be a whole number. So with that information, we can actually figure out how salvage operations really works. So in order to determine exactly how the salvage operations boost works, let's take a look at our level 2 results. At level 2, we get a 40% bonus to variable resources. So the most interesting item or test in this box is actually test number 1 with our impact driver, because we know that the minimum that you can get from a fuse box is 2 electrical parts. However, this gave us 3. So since the minimum is 2 and 40% of 2 is 0.8, that would give us a total of 2.8 electrical parts. However, 7 Days to Die has rounded that up to 3 electrical parts. But if we take a look at our level 1 box, you will notice something interesting. One of our impact driver tests only yielded 2 electrical parts. Now, 20% of 2 is 0.4. So this would have yielded us 2.4 electrical parts. However, we only got 2 electrical parts. 7 Days to Die did not round that up to 3. So that shows us that there is a rounding cutoff point, a fraction of a part that you have to reach in order for the game to round it up and give you that extra part. From all of the tests that I have done so far regarding this topic, I would guess that that level is somewhere around 0.75. So you need to get at least 0.75 of a part in order for the game to round it up to the next level. So if this were 2.75 electrical parts, it would round it up and give us 3. But since 20% of 2 is only 0.4, we only have 2.4 parts, it rounds it down and only gives us 2. So let's go ahead and wrap this up in a nice little pretty package. I will try to explain everything that we have learned as quickly and as easily as possible. Again, I know this is a little bit complicated and very mass intensive. Unfortunately, there's no way to avoid that when calculating the bonus for salvage operations. So what have we learned? We have learned that all salvageable items in 7 Days to Die have static resources which will never change and are not affected by salvage operations at all, and variable resources which can change and are affected by the salvage operations perk. We have also learned that 7 Days to Die uses a random number generator to determine the amount of variable resources that a salvageable item will grant you the moment that item has been spawned into the world. We have learned that all variable resources have a range that you can get, anywhere from 2 to 6 electrical parts for the fuse box, as an example. We have also learned that the number of variable resources is not necessarily a whole number. It could be 2.5. It could be 2.9. It could be anywhere on that spectrum between the minimum and the maximum amount of parts that you can get. And lastly, we have learned that 7 Days to Die has a rounding threshold that you must reach in order to receive that extra part. By testing, I believe that threshold is somewhere around 0.75. It could be 0.8. I believe it's somewhere in that range. So there you have it, folks. That was the tool update and a detailed look at salvage operations. I hope that made sense. I hope I was able to explain it adequately. If not, be sure and leave any and all questions you may have in the comments below. But for now, this is Saven saying thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me in Saven's World. If you found this video helpful and or enjoyable, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss a single one of our tutorial videos. And remember, the average gamer is always king of the hill on the bell curve.